Hello, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Martha and Tina, for that wonderful presentation. My colleague Rosie and I today will be talking about GDUFA III suitability petitions. On this slide is just an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, which is our objective, resources, GDUFA III, best practices in submitting a suitability petition, as well as common issues and deficiencies that we see when we're reviewing suitability petitions at FDA. So our learning objectives for today is to provide a background refresher on the generic drug user fee amendments commitment letter, also known as GDUFA III, with regard to reviewing suitability petitions. We're also going to describe the proper format and content of a suitability petition. In addition, we're going to review the requirements for submitting suitability petitions that are triggered by the Pediatric Research Equity Act, also known as PREA. We're also going to list the reasons for denial of a suitability petition, and we're going to identify best practices and tips for submitting a quality suitability petition to FDA. So let's start with the basics. What is a suitability petition? A suitability petition is actually a type of citizen petition. It's a request to submit an abbreviated new drug application that is different from the reference listed drug, the RLD, in one or more of the following ways: strength, route of administration, dosage form, and change in one active ingredient in a fixed combination drug product, such as a drug product with multiple active ingredients. So what are our GDUFA III commitments with regard to suitability petitions? Well, this was brand new under GDUFA III. FDA has made certain commitments when it comes to suitability petitions for fiscal years 2024 through 2027. Most importantly, we have already started conducting completeness assessments for suitability petitions in this fiscal year. The time frame for completing these completeness assessments is 21 days after the date of petition submission. However, if an information request is issued as part of the completeness assessment and the petitioner submits a response, FDA will finish the completeness assessment within 21 days after we receive the IR response. So under GDUFA III, we also have the priority of suitability petitions that fit under certain categories. For example, suitability petitions that could mitigate or resolve a drug shortage and prevent future shortages. Suitability petitions that address a public health emergency declared by the Secretary of HHS under Section 319 of the PHS Act. Petitions that are for a new strength of a parenteral product that could aid in eliminating waste or mitigating the number of vials needed per dose by addressing deficiencies in patient weight, body size, or age. Finally, the prioritization of suitability petitions that fall under subject special review programs under the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, also known as PEPFAR. Our next GDUFA III slide talks about the goals that we've made under GDUFA III with regard to completing suitability petitions over the next few fiscal years. So in this fiscal year, FDA is committing to a goal of 50% of submissions within 6 months after completeness assessment and up to a maximum of 50 suitability petitions completed. By fiscal year 2025, the goal is 70% of submissions within 6 months after completeness assessment and up to a maximum of 70 suitability petitions completed. By fiscal year 2026, that number rises to 80% of submissions within 6 months after completeness assessment and up to a maximum of 80 suitability petitions completed. By the end of GDUFA III in fiscal year 2027, that number rises to 90% of submissions within 6 months after completeness assessment, and up to a maximum of 90 suitability petitions completed. So now that we've gone over what is a suitability petition and our GDUFA III goals, what do you do when you submit a suitability petition to the FDA? Well, as I stated earlier, suitability petitions are a type of citizen petition. So that's really important because petitioners must follow the format that's outlined in 21 CFR 10.30. Additionally, suitability petitions are submitted to our dockets management staff. And I want to highlight a few things here in this slide because it's important in processing your suitability petitions in a timely manner. Your submissions, your supplemental material, your amendments, and that includes responses to information requests, are related to a specific docket ID, and they should be uploaded using FDA's electronic method for specific electronic submissions via docket ID FDA-23-S-0610. I know that's very specific, but it's very important in preventing any processing delays of your suitability petition. All supplemental or supported material and amendments must also reference the previously assigned docket ID. And there's an example here, including your subject, an amendment to FDA, and what your assigned docket ID is. So DMS can process it in compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations. I highly encourage you, if you're going to submit a suitability petition to the FDA, to refer to instructions on how to upload it and using the instructions that are entitled electronic method for specific electronic submissions to FDA's Division of Dockets Management staff. So more about submitting a suitability petition. As I mentioned, it is a type of citizen petition. So refer to 21 CFR 10.30. And on that section, there are 5 sections that a citizen petition must include, which includes a suitability petition. And that is action requested, statement of grounds, environmental impact, economic impact, and certification. Additional content specifically for suitability petitions are outlined in 21 CFR 314.93, paragraph D. And that paragraph highlights that it's important to identify a reference listed drug, submit a copy of the currently approved RLD labeling, as well as submit a copy of the proposed labeling. Finally, it's important when you submit your suitability petition to, if your request triggers PREA, that you submit your waiver request and a waiver justification. So suitability petitions and PREA. It's important to note that suitability petitions proposing a change in dosage form, route of administration, or a change in active ingredient in a fixed combination drug product do trigger the requirements for pediatric assessments or molecularly targeted pediatric cancer investigations under PREA. These requirements may be waived, but you must submit a waiver request. PREA authorizes FDA to waive the requirement to submit a pediatric assessment based on certain criteria for some or all pediatric age groups. So for any suitability petition that requests a change in dosage form, route of administration, or a new ingredient in a fixed combination product, an applicant should provide a request to waive the requirements triggered by PREA. So we really want to refer to you to the guidance that was issued last year on PREA requirements and requesting a waiver. This FDA draft guidance for industry, it has a really long name, Pediatric Drug Development Regulatory Considerations Complying with the Pediatric Research Equity Act and Qualifying for Pediatric Exclusivity under the Best Pharmaceuticals for Children Act. So that guidance replaces a previous guidance and it outlines the criteria for requesting a PREA waiver. I highly recommend reviewing that if your request triggers PREA. So requesting a PREA waiver. To request a waiver, applicants should provide the following: the drug name, applicant name, and drug indication, the age group indicated in the waiver request, the statutory reasons for requesting a waiver, including reference to the applicable statutory authority, And finally, evidence that the request meets the statutory reasons for waiver. All relevant scientific clinical justifications for waiver should be included. It's important to note that if we deny your PREA waiver request, your suitability petition will be denied. Now I would like to move on to our challenge question number 1 before I turn it over to my colleague Rosie. Which type of change does not trigger the requirements under PREA? Is it A, changes in dosage form, B, changes in route of administration, C, changes in strength, D, changes in one active ingredient in a fixed combination drug product? Any guesses? Well, I hope you're all thinking of C. The correct answer is C, changes in strength. Except for changes in strength, all other requested changes do trigger PREA and require PREA waiver and justification when submitting your suitability petition. Thank you so much. I will now turn it over to my colleague Rosie to discuss recommended supplemental information when submitting your suitability petition, as well as best practices.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Arlene. So once again, I'm Rosie Pagaduan. I'm a supervisory pharmacist in the Division of Filing Review. Arlene just went over the background on suitability petitions, a refresher on the GDUFA III commitments, as well as jumping into the required content for submitting a suitability petition. So now I'll be transitioning into some supplemental information that's recommended, not required, but it can facilitate the review of your suitability petition. We did mention that the RLD labeling and proposed labeling is required for a suitability petition, but if available, it is helpful to provide annotated proposed labeling that identifies all the differences between the prescribing information in the RLD labeling. If there is a proposed change in strength, provide a description of the proposed product. For example, the tablet color, shape, size, or any identifying imprint codes. And if available, also provide proposed carton labeling as well as container labels. For petitions requesting a different active ingredient in a fixed combination drug product, provide a description of any differences in clinical safety or efficacy that may be seen with the newly proposed active ingredient compared to the active ingredient in the RLD. For example, if the new active ingredient has a narrow therapeutic index, or if it could give rise to different adverse effects from that of the RLD, those would be important to note. And then verify whether dosing or presentation strength of the overall product will change as a result of the substitution of one of the active ingredients. For petitions requesting a different route of administration or dosage form, submit information on whether the different ROA or dosage form gives rise to a potentially adverse event profile. Going from a tablet to an injection may lead to injection site reactions that are obviously wouldn't exist in the tablet formulation, but important to point out. You'll want to include details of what the clinical outcome or impact is if a user were to administer the proposed product through the RLD's intended route of administration. Indicate any changes in administration technique or instructions for use. For example, changes from a tablet to an orally disintegrating tablet should have different administration techniques or instructions that are identified in the proposed labeling. Now I'll move on to reasons for denial of a suitability petition. 21 CFR 314.93E outlines the reasons that the FDA may deny a suitability petition, starting with some of the more common reasons that we've seen. If during our review, the agency identifies that investigations must be conducted to show the safety and effectiveness of the drug product, then the petition will be denied. For petitions that seek a change to an active ingredient, the drug product that is the subject of the petition must be a fixed combination drug product. It cannot be a single active ingredient drug product seeking to change that active ingredient. And then if your petition triggers PREA and a PREA waiver request is denied or not granted, the FDA will deny your petition as the proposed product is ineligible for approval in an ANDA. If any of the proposed changes from the listed drug jeopardize the safety or effective use of the product so as to necessitate significant labeling changes to address the newly introduced safety or effectiveness problem, then your petition will be denied. If the FDA determines that the RLD, that's the basis of submission of your petition, has been withdrawn from sale for safety or effectiveness reasons, or, this is a big one, if the RLD drug has been voluntarily withdrawn and the agency has not determined that it's been withdrawn for safety or effectiveness reasons, that could prolong or result in a denial of your petition. If a drug product is already approved in an NDA for the change that's described in your petition could be denied. So this slide covers the denial reasons listed in 314.9.3 pertaining to petitions that are proposing changes in an active ingredient for a fixed combination drug product. It's provided here for completeness purposes only. You can use it as a reference, but they aren't commonly encountered as petitions for fixed combination drug product changes of the active ingredient aren't as common. Now jumping into the more interesting part, best practices for submitting a suitability petition. Ensure your amendments are submitted properly. Arlene went over the guide that shows instructions on how to upload your amendments to your docket. You'll want to ensure that all amendments, so any responses to information requests that are issued during the completeness assessment stage or even thereafter, should be uploaded using the Shell docket ID FDA 2013 S0610. And then in your amendment itself, be sure to include a subject line or a title that identifies the document as an amendment, referencing the original docket number that you were assigned. For example, subject amendment to FDA, and then your petition number. Does your petition propose a change in dosage form, route of administration, or a change in an active ingredient in a fixed combination drug? If so, make sure you provide your PREA waiver request. Arlene went over the content that's required for a PREA waiver request and also referred to the guidance. There's also a link at the end of this presentation to the resource for that guidance. When submitting a petition, make sure you check the Orange Book. You'll want to check if an NDA has already been approved for the drug product that's proposed in your petition. If one is already approved, you can go ahead and submit your ANDA referencing that NDA as the basis of submission. If the RLD that's cited as the basis of submission has been discontinued, you'll want to make sure that a determination has been made by the agency that the product was not discontinued or withdrawn for reasons of safety or effectiveness reasons. If it has been discontinued and no determination has been made, you may submit a citizen petition to seek a determination whether the RLD was withdrawn from sale for reasons of safety or effectiveness reasons. This determination must be made prior to approving a suitability petition relying on a discontinued NDA. And lastly, ensure your petition submission includes a copy of the proposed labeling and a copy of the approved labeling of the reference listed drug. All right. For any petitioners that might have any petitions pending that were submitted prior to FY 2024 and you want a GDUFA goal date, there is an option for you. You can withdraw that petition and resubmit that petition, and you'll receive a goal date upon completion of a completeness assessment. Lastly, wait for approval of your suitability petition. FDA will refuse to receive an ANDA citing a pending suitability petition or a suitability petition that was denied, as that ANDA would lack a legal basis of submission. All right. And challenge question 2. Which of the following statements is not true? A copy of the currently approved RLD labeling and proposed labeling should be included with a suitability petition. B, a suitability petition allows a person to submit a request to change a dosing regimen different from that of a listed drug. C, a suitability petition will be denied if a drug product is approved in an NDA for the change described in the petition. And D, a suitability petition will be denied if the reference listed drug that is the basis of the petition has been voluntarily withdrawn from sale and the agency has not determined whether the withdrawal is for safety or effectiveness reasons. Any guesses? B, I'm hearing B. Correct answer is B. You cannot submit a petition proposing a change in dosing regimen. The 4 allowed permissible types of changes are changes in strength, dosage form, route of administration, and a single active ingredient in a fixed combination drug product. Again, here are the resources, a couple of the guidances that we mentioned, as well as a link to the map on our internal review of suitability petitions. And as a summary, we went over the format and content that's outlined in the regulations. Big thing is to provide that waiver request for any petitions that trigger PREA. Remember the instructions for submitting amendments to dockets management staff. This is important for timely processing of your petition. And then once your suitability petition is approved, you can go ahead and submit your ANDA.